I think that's one of the most important elements of coaching is, we talked about, being able to deal with staff personalities, but certainly just as important is, to keep everybody, including yourself, hungry.
So, starting the season, you go to Fitch, and a couple things of note. Obviously, you win 46-13. Kenny's in year 2 of post Hartman, and that's been good to the Cowboys. So the article states, I thought this was interesting. Chaney's produced some of the most outstanding football players in the Valley: Sinkowicz, Angelo, Calcagni, De Niro, and the name Floyd might be added to that role before too long. And that's in reference to Antoine going 10 for 12, 277 yards and 4 touchdowns. Anthony, 273 all-purpose yards and 4 touchdowns. Over the 30-game stretch between Chaney and Fitch, it's the biggest victory, point differential. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, as it turned out, it was really a show. I mean, the kids went out and executed and, showed the big play capabilities, showed the ability to run the football, and, names come bursting out. Anthony, as a sophomore, becomes, or he would have been a junior.
No, he's a sophomore.
He would have been, sophomore. He becomes like big time name now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the show that he puts on, same in Antoine. So we go from a team that is throwing it a little bit more, which is really adding to the successes that we had running the football, and knowing that we had the instant strike capability. Okay. Suspecting going into the game that we had that's what we were preparing for. And then once it came to fruition, and you see it on display, which is, the key mark game in the area.
Right. Right.
The opener at Fitch. Really, I mean, you talk about generating that instant belief. It certainly did that, and I remember, and I just happened to look at the highlight film, and Fred had our pregame there, and I remember talking to the kids. I remember that night, and how excited before the game, the atmosphere and everything, how excited I was, and the staff was, and the kids were, and then charging the field and taking care of business in the way that they did was really sets the tone.
Yeah, that first week, there's so many emotions, and it being such at that time, difficult opener, right? It's exciting for the fans. It's really difficult for the kids and staffs.
Yeah, I don't recall who our scrimmages were that year. I want to say they were probably Canfield, and I'd have to. It could have been. I was thinking Seneca with Shepis. We said Seneca. We scrimmaged them.
Oh, okay.
And it might have been, but I'm sure both scrimmages went well and added to that pregame excitement.
One thing that we'll see as we go through the season here, Craig Lynn, 10-yard touchdown reception before half. And before you talk about that a little bit, 21 points in the second quarter, right? So you kind of jumped on him there in the second quarter, took it to him. But you see him make a number of big catches, number of touchdowns for a tight end, right? From the tight end position. Yeah. What were you doing there to create some of that? Or just running the same stuff, hitting a drag, or what was?
Yeah, it was, sprint out, either, running a shallow out or dragging across, or kicking in stack and running seam delay, or circle seam or whatever. But yeah, having bookend tight ends with Ciccarelli and Lynn really gave us a two-dimension attack at that position. Both great blockers, and both having the ability to catch the ball. Now, you got to prepare for a whole bunch of stuff now. Okay, you got a deep threat with Anthony and Dramati, and I'm sure that I'm missing someone else. But you got Klink and Anthony running tailback. So that's only going to help you,
Yeah.
when you got all those weapons.
Vindy also talks about at the end of the article, Chaney coach Ron Burns presented the game ball to assistant coach Joe Wilson. His brother Michael killed in a bicycle accident this summer. Mike was a member of the freshman football team.
Yeah, really an emotional time. I mean, and I know after the Brook game, we talked about it when we were 10-0, but yeah, losing Mike, and it was during doubles. We went there and as a team, and help bury him, and it was, but we got in the bus and went back and practiced. I mean, but he was there, and I said it, and I believe it, to this day. He was with us as his family was always with us, Joe and Joe Senior, and they were as much a part of that undefeated season as any one player.
Yeah. Week 2, Campbell. You had that week 2 Campbell game for a long time.
Yeah.
Long time. 19-0 win. Do you remember anything about that game?
I think they had a couple backs. They weren't. I don't know who was there. I don't think Rosum was there then. But they weren't the power that they were. And you talk about being the second game. Hell, when I was a player in '69, that was our second game. Seems like it was always the second game. I think it was a matter of coming off of a real big win. Maybe we'll be full of ourselves, or but I don't think we let that happen. Defensively, we played well, and offensively, we took care of business. But I'm pretty sure that we went there expecting to win, and maybe not even expecting it to be that close, but
Yeah, it says Camel had 2 turnovers, opening kickoff. Faraglia recovers, and the next play is Craig Lynn for a touchdown. Anthony Floyd intercepted a Camel pass, returned it 56 yards for a touchdown. Cowboys had 288 total yards. Camel had 90. So obviously a great defensive.
Yeah, it could have been raining that game. I'm not sure, but that's a possibility. And but as I said, Frags comes up with a big play. I mean, so you got another guy that is adding on to uh, things that people got to prepare for. I mean, he had a great year for us. I mean, it was a good win. I mean,
Yeah. Then you go to Boardman, 41-7 win there. Opened with a 54-yard pass play from Antoine to Anthony. Jabadi has an interception in the end zone and returns it all the way. I think it was 102 yards.
I'm sure it's got to be a high school record, a Chaney record anyway. But I mean, I don't know that but yeah, it was the Boardman game and the manner in beating Boardman. The what was it,
41-7.
41-7. Always approach the year. If we could get 2 out of the first 3, we think that we could be in for a pretty good year.
Right.
So being 3, coming out of that game, winning the way we did, being 3-0, things are.
Here's a question I have for you. You were always so stoic, and what I mean by that is, as a young coach feeding off the head coach, there was never an element of satisfaction. Did you ever personally feel like, I hate to say it because then it feels like you're complacent. Did you ever feel like, okay, we're where we want to be, or we're in a good spot? Because you never gave that vibe off.
No. I think that's one of the most important elements of coaching is, we talked about, being able to deal with the staff personalities, but certainly just as important is, to keep everybody, including yourself, hungry. It's like that commercial that used to be on, coaches ripping them, and the guy looks up and says, well, we're winning 28-0 or something. And, I just don't think that's part of the deal. I mean, I think any coach that's worth his salt, is going to maintain that hunger.
Okay. I was wondering about this. Clinkscale has 93 yards, 2 touchdowns. You've talked about it a few times, and I can't remember when it was. Is this where you took a knee going in to score against Boardman? There was a year where you talked about where they got you, and then the next year you ended up taking a knee before you could have put one more in. You took a knee on the goal line going in.
It could have been. I recall what you're talking about, and Warren was the coach. I remember that. And, they had a feature article with the 2 of us talking about the upcoming game, and nothing but respect for Bill.
If it was Bourne, that's probably not. I think he was gone by that time. But I was just wondering, since it was such a big.
Well, I'm not saying that it had to be Bourne. I'm saying I contrary to what maybe some people might say, I never ran a score up in my life, and if there was an opportunity to show humility, you know, I
I will say this.
I think it's a great lesson to teach your kids.
There were, I think people who might think that you ran a score up might reference if you're playing like a Wilson team and you run a fake punt when you're up by 28. And I say that circling back to the personality that I know of the game's never in the bag.
Right.
So it's not personal. It's that mentality of you're always worried about what could happen.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, 28-0 to me, if it's 28-0, it's it, and it's middle of the fourth quarter, okay, and you're running fake punt, that's a different animal.
Right. It might have been third quarter that I remember, but it's all good. But I guess I'm saying having my frame of reference, knowing you, being knowing how it was, I wouldn't take it that way.
I mean, you've been there. You understand.
Not too many times I was up 28.
But no, what I'm saying is, no matter what the situation is, you're always looking for that safe snap.
Sure.
You're always looking for that clock to wind down and nothing.
Right.
Okay. And you can have a tremendous lead. But yeah.
No, I get it. And I say that I completely understand where you're coming from.
I can recall this. I can recall playing Wilson. Brian Marr was the coach. He was the coach. And they weren't very good that night anyway. And we were having our way, so to speak. And Brian came over after the game was over and everything. And I think it was maybe like 42-0 or something. I don't remember what the score was, but Brian came over, thanked me, congratulated us, shook hands, hugged, one of his assistants over his shoulder says, "Yeah, way to run it up, Burtis," or something like that. And I looked at Brian was like, I mean, right away he went to the guy and he was like, "Hey, you're completely." And I looked at the guy and I said, "Run it up." I said, "We could have scored 100." And I'm not saying that because that was the right thing to say. That was the wrong thing to say. The best thing there would have been to say nothing. But I mean, that's how people interpret things. I mean, that's
coaching.
That's coaching. That's how I call it.
Week 4, West Geauga. How'd you get those guys on?
I don't know. It was we were always looking for games, once you start winning, they come to you. But I would always call Dick on those. And he had the war room going. I mean, he'd say, "Well, play him or don't play him."
He was,
he could find you a game.
Yes.
He could.
Yes.
But that West Geauga. I mean, I wasn't crazy excited. I think they were always respectable, and I wasn't excited about going on the road and playing there. But I mean, we needed a game, and they filled it.
So you go, I think it's 28-3. Does that sound about right? 28-3?
Yeah, that's about right.
Anthony Floyd, 72-yard punt return for a touchdown, 2 receiving touchdowns. Clinkscale has a 49-yard touchdown run. Antoine is 10 of 16 for 184 yards. Clinkscale is 22 carries for 130. 406 total yards for the Cowboys and 193 for Giaga.
What I remember about that game is after the game, my wife and my mother came and met me on the field afterwards, like they always did. And my mother said, "Why aren't you throwing the ball?" She obviously recognized we had a pretty good quarterback. But I remember that. And I remember talking about it at the banquet that year.
Well, leave it to our moms to give us the honest truth, right?
Yeah.
16 times. I mean, that's a lot for Cowboys.
Yeah.
Up to that point.
But I don't know how many times we threw it at Fitch, but
well, it's funny you say that. It was he was 10 of 12. 10 of 12 for 277. So you're averaging, 27.7 yards of completion. I mean, that's pretty good. But then at Camel, he was 3 of 7, and all 71 yards went to Lynn. So obviously I was going to ask you that before we talked about it, but 12 to 7 isn't a huge difference. But after he goes 10 of 12, was there a reason maybe you weren't opening it up? Was it just kind of like, this is who we are and I'm just going to let it out a little bit? Or
well, I think, and like I said, it could have been raining.
Right. When you said that, that's why I didn't kind of ask it.
Yeah.
Wilson, 38-6. There's no article I could find on that. Do you remember who was at Wilson at that time? Was it McClendon?
I want to say Mike McClendon. Okay. Recently, just passed.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
A couple weeks ago, yeah.
And then in 98, his son ended up coming over.
Yep. Yeah, he played
linebacker.
Right? For us.
Yeah.
Played linebacker and I want to say center, maybe.
Okay. Then you go to Struthers, and you win 59-14.
Yeah, and I don't know if Perone was there, Pete.
So 59-14. Any memories of that game?
No, I don't remember how good or bad Struthers was that year. I just know that we felt we were rolling, but maintaining an attitude. Let's take one game at a time, and let the chips fall where they may.
Might have to cut this. What year did they cancel football? Because I thought it was 96, but obviously not. Was it 95 maybe? And then they started, a bunch of kids left, or was it maybe 97 when Darnell Emanuel came over?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't recall that.
So, good win. That puts you at 5-0. Looking at the rest of the season, you got Poland, Rain, East, Brook. You knowing the history and the significance of what ends up happening at the end of the year, and like I said, the history of it, and you, when I was on staff with you for so long, never talking about the next game, ever. When in your head do you start thinking, we might be able to go 10-0? Because I think even subconsciously that has to creep in somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it crosses some paths in your mind, and I'm sure that it did. But we were so focused on taking one game at a time and doing what was in front of us that, there wasn't time to dwell on that. But again, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that I'm sure that it popped up in a mindset.
Okay. So the following week you go to Poland, so you're getting that whole neck of the Struthers Poland connection back to back. You get a 13-3 win, and the Vindy is noted as it was an overflow crowd. At this time, ranked second in the AP poll, so you're getting statewide recognition. Antoine goes 14 for 20 for 224 yards and 2 touchdowns, 13 rushes for 45 yards. So you took Mom's advice and you started throwing it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Getting in that 20 attempts, that's pretty significant.
Yeah. I don't remember whether if it was their typical homecoming game, because it seemed like we were always. I don't recall if that was a day game or a night game.
It did not say, so it just led me to be a night game.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a night game.
And you think Shep had left at this time?
I'm sure Shep left at this time. I'm sure Paul was there because
so Julia followed Shep
because I think the 8 times that we played Poland.
Okay.
Or I think it was, we beat him 7 out of 8 times. And Paul was there in all of them.
Okay.
No, that's not true.
Brungard was there one time.
Yeah.
At the end. 05.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Poland opens the game with a 15-play drive and no points.
Pretty sure we had a stand there.
Yeah.
A line stand.
Floyd, 35-yard touchdown pass with 44 seconds left before half. Do you remember anything about that play?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
So you're leading 6-3 at half, and Poland receives a kickoff. They completed a 17-yard pass on 3rd and 15 to convert. Dwayne Papkovich goes 6 for 12. Good friend of mine, Dwayne. He was a quarterback at Poland. Played baseball with him. Great guy. Went on to coach at Westminster. Now he's down at East Palestine with Botch as the AD. We were playing baseball at Pemberton. Got hit in the face. I mean, thought he was dead. Legitimately took him in an ambulance. Came back and played 2 days later. Tough guy. Great guy.
Like Joe Batura.
Joe Batura? He got hit? I didn't know that.
One of the Batura that coached for Pope.
Yeah, Joe.
Yeah. He got whacked with.
Really? I didn't know that.
I think while he was coaching.
Oh, God.
He was pitching without a screen or something.
Oh, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
He's a referee now.
Yeah.
Antoine is 7 passes, 96 yards, 7 completions, 96 yards. So just another good game, and it's the beginning of the Poland bloodbaths that we used to have with them. Those were always just very physical, minus one game here or there. Because I think we waxed them one night when we were on TV, and when they went to the state championship, they got us pretty good. But they were always just phenomenal games.
Yeah, it was tough games. Good atmosphere to play in. Always a good crowd, but tough games.
So one note I had, the Bulldogs were on the 2 going in, and Bill Ciccarelli causes a fumble with 4 minutes left to play. So, like you're talking about some of the goal line stands, the timely plays, somebody contributing, making a play.
Yeah, right. And well, that, like I said, that's one of our horsemen there, making a play. I mean, and I don't know. I think we had 12 guys make all city that year, maybe. I don't
Yeah,
know.
we'll get to it. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. The thing about Sick was I didn't, so I was a year ahead of him and I didn't really know him. And I worked with him for a short time. And the thing that always struck me about him was like he was just a nice guy. Like just a good dude.
he epitomized the winner that works silently in the
Yeah.
corner.
Yeah. And it's like at that age, when you're 18, 20, that's not the first thing you recognize in a person. You know what I mean? So for that characteristic to stand out, and even still, I mean, he's just a
Great guy.
yes,
Great guy.
100%,
Really good football player.
Yeah, I believe it. Then you go into Rain, win 9-0. Thoughts about that before we? Not a big write up, but just thoughts about that.
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I remember the game. I I I don't. I want to say Pete Limber was the coach.
Okay.
But I could be wrong.
Was Crenshaw there at the time, or had he left?
He might have been.
Okay.
Yeah, he might have been. And that surprises me that 9-0. I mean,
well, here's a stat for you.
It surprises me. Did we kick a field goal?
Doesn't say.
I'm wondering. I'd be.
Did you kick 3 field goals?
I know that.
So, you guys are averaging almost 35 points a game and 390 yards per game. Right. I mean, that's really impressive. Ryan's averaging 20 points a game and 250 points. And I think one of the things that they noted in the Vindy article was that they expected, going into that game, there was an expectation of a little bit of some offensive prowess, right? A little more points than 9-0, but both defenses really showed up.
It would seem to me that Crenshaw probably was there because he wasn't a one-trick pony. They had a good surrounding cast, so they must have had a pretty good football team.
I'd have to look this up. I don't know if it was this year or the following year, but I think they beat Ursuline.
Yeah.
Which could possibly have been when he was there. It says that there was 3,500 at Stambaugh Stadium on a Thursday night, so this was one of those Thursday night games. That's not a bad crowd for one of the Thursday night games, and 23 consecutive city games won.
Yeah, and maybe we were starting to tighten up a little bit. Maybe we were starting to see what was ahead of us and looking past things. And I don't know. It seemed to me that our priority would be, hey, this is what's in front of us. Let's get through this. And rain was a hurdle, and it was a tough hurdle, and we got through it. And
let me ask you this:
we're still undefeated.
I didn't see the date of it. Would it have been possible at that time to have a Saturday game at Poland, like that homecoming Saturday game, followed by a Thursday night game at Ryan?
Could have been. That's quite possible.
That would have been,
which would have probably, because I remember practicing one time on a Sunday, so could have been that.
Yeah. What was your approach to some of the city games on a Thursday night or a Saturday game? I know it probably didn't differ too much, but logistically there did there were some positives and some negatives to it. Can you talk about that?
It was really demoralizing playing at YSU on a Saturday morning when you can hear yourself echo in the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't a great atmosphere for the kids. I mean, and I think we just looked at it as this is this is the hand that we're dealt, and we got to deal with it.
Yeah. Game plan wise, if you play on a Thursday, would you guys would go scout on a Friday?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If you played on a Saturday afternoon, you go scout on a Friday?
Yeah.
And at that time, you guys were trading films, like physically trading tapes.
Yeah. And our deal was, you won 10 games, I'll give you 10. Okay. But I want 10 in return.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I never got into the, well, I'm not going to exchange, or I'm only going to exchange. I would always initiate the call and call the coach and say, hey, how many games you want? I just want the same amount.
Okay. So East the next week, there's really no article on that, and pull out a victory 38-6. Was I'm assuming Leiden was there at the time?
Yeah, because he was there in '97. Yeah, that's when they were starting to make some noise.
Mm-hmm.
That he really did a great job developing that program, and they were a team to reckon with. Certainly in '97, but I think '96 we were aware of their staff and what the product they were putting on the field.
Who was on his staff?
One guy that passed,
Steve Dorbish.
Steve Dorbish, yes.
He was my elementary gym teacher.
Good guy, good coach.
Yeah. I think it was just for like a year. We had a couple guys. Was there another guy named Lynch in the district? He's a white guy. I can't remember his name. I think he coached. He was a basketball coach.
Yeah.
I remember he was just huge. He was a big weightlifter. Dorbish, right?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, as a matter of fact, in '97 when they came for exchange for, might have been for the playoff game. He went down. He went down in the gym.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, that's when he was ill. They not only did they have a great football team and a great coaching staff, but now they were playing for a cause.
Yeah. Did he have cancer?
Yeah.
Okay. So now you're 9-0, going into Brook. The Bears.
Yeah. That was, you're 9-0. You've been there a couple times as far as winning 9 games. But now you could see the possibility of being 10-0, obviously. And you're going into hostile territory, and it is a tough place to play. Really a tough place to play. And as a matter of fact, at the beginning of the game, when I was talking to the officials, I just happened to mention to the hat, hey, we're down here, we're just want a good game. We're just, our kids are going to play hard, and and he looked at me and he said, son, you're in West Virginia now.
So it is legitimately hostile territory.
It's hostile territory. I mean, it's every bit as hostile as Steubenville.
It's all on that river, man.
It is a river thing.
I remember we played down there when I was at Ursuline, and it was, I'm assuming it had just been a couple years later. You drive in, and they got those banners. I don't know if it was a grocery store or whatever it was, but there's banners waiting for you.
And they got the kids' pictures, cutouts of them, and they got the town shuts down. I mean, everybody's in green and gold, and sitting in the. We scouted them one year, and it was a thunderstorm. I mean, a raging thunderstorm blew up. Okay, we were hunkered down underneath a concession stand to wait out this thunderstorm. Teams obviously were off the field, and the Brook faithful put their yellow and gold and green parkas on and just hunkered down in the stands. And there was lightning hitting all over the place. It was crazy.
The mountain men were sticking to stay. They were going to watch the game.
Yeah. And it certainly was. I mean, Frags makes a interception at the end of the game and to seal it for us. But it was tough game. I mean, we expected they weren't as good as I think they were the couple of years before that we played them.
They were a historically state power.
Oh yeah,
right. And that's the thing. I think that the average fan wouldn't know. I mean, they were a powerhouse down in West Virginia.
I'm trying to think of the name of the coach.
We talked about it before on
Bud Billard.
Okay,
Bud Billard. What a character. Yeah. Good football coach. Had great success there. Was there for a long time, and we kept in touch after that.
Where'd you exchange film there? Halfway.
Yeah, halfway.
Who'd you send for that?
I don't remember.
Who was your tape guy at that point in time? Was it the early Saturday morning, or was it?
But I might have got some film from Reno on that because Reno and I kind of did some exchanging.
Yeah, we helped each other out a little bit. Yeah. So, what's the pregame speech? Knowing you're going 10-0. Now you're here. Right before you said, maybe it crept in, maybe it didn't, but now it's here, and the history, the significance, the meaning of it.
Yeah, I don't know. And I'd be lying if I told you that I remember the pregame, but I'm sure that we talked about just taking care of business and go out, play your game, and we knew we were pretty much locked into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
The prize was certainly that 10-0 deal. I mean, so I'm sure that we talked about you have an opportunity to become the fourth team in the school's history to be undefeated. And I'm sure that I talked about my father being on the first team that was undefeated in 29. Our kids went out and did what they needed to do, and
right. You went 27-21. Clink scale of 27 carries for 118 yards and 3 touchdowns, 8 tackles. Match your body, 9 tackles, 3 sacks. You mentioned this earlier. Fragley has an interception with 1:54 remaining, and that's the 3rd interception of the night, collectively.
That's right in front of our bench too.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's to seal it, right? So obviously that, and that could be a loss. Like, touchdown, kick the field goal, kick the extra point. Craig Lynn has an interception. It was 21-13 at half, so it was close all the way through. It says that Brooke had the ball twice in the last 5 minutes, but the defense held.
Yeah. And the great thing I think about that is, they all stepped up. It wasn't, well, and maybe the closeness of the game and being on the road and being down there and being on the river, maybe, that influence not being as open as much as maybe we were. Maybe we played a little bit too tight to the vest. But the great thing was that it was a great team win.
Yeah.
And it was a monumental win. I mean,
so you're quoted after in the article, you're in the end zone with the team and you say, I have one thing to say, thank you. And it says your voice is breaking with emotion. It says who holds a game ball over his head and shouts 10-0, and all the players repeat it. How's that feel?
Well, it's pretty amazing. I mean, to have that type of success and to be marked in the annals as a historic is part of history for the school. I mean, it was an unbelievable feeling. I mean, it really was. It was something that I never experienced as a player, and I could recall holding the gold football. I still have it. That they gave my father with a red C on it for 1929 undefeated, and looking at it as a kid, and then even as a player at Chaney, and kind of dreaming of that, and to be there was pretty surreal.
You're also quoted saying, ask the captains when they went out for the coin toss. I said, I haven't asked you for anything all year, but I need you now. And they stepped up against a whole bunch of adversity and just made plays. And what can I say? 10-0.
They sure did. They sure did.
So as you say, you get to swish it around in your mouth for 24 hours and you're back to working.
Right. And that's as good a team as there. I mean, all 20 of the teams during my tenure and the 10 years as an assistant were special. But that 96 team, obviously because of from the historical standpoint, but certainly we had playmakers, but all the guys can. I mean, it was such a team contributing successful venture. It really was an unbelievably special year.
So you make the playoffs. At that time, 4 teams make the playoffs. So it's extremely difficult, right? An extremely difficult accomplishment to even get invited to play in a tournament, right? The exclusiveness of that. Looking at it from today's set up. It's much more rigorous to get in. And you go play Canfield, who I think you mentioned that you had thought you'd scrimmage that year.
Yeah.
And, what's your thought process going into the playoff game, preparation? What are you thinking?
Well, again, it's an exciting time. We're 10-0 going into a team playing them at Fitch, and knowing a lot about them because, like I said, we scrimmaged, and feeling good, thinking that they're a really good football team, and we're going to have to have a mixture of attack, and we're going to need what we got for 10 games. We're going to need everybody to step up. And our kids did not disappoint. I mean, the biggest downside was that it was raining for a day before the game and all day during the game, or before the day of the game. And the field was wet, and it was rain and cold. But we thought we had a good game plan, and we came out, and while we could, we took advantage of it being semi-playable, the field, and jumped out 18-0. With the weather the way it was, and an 18-point lead, you would have told me that that wasn't enough. I would have called you a liar. But we stalled, and they did. They got going, and we struggled to stop their running game.
So a couple names, Cleghorn and Sega. Is that the back you were mentioning?
No, Bond was the back.
Bond, yeah, Bond. Jim Kogar.
Jim Kogar's father was a Chaney guy.
Yeah. In the second half, Canfield has 35 plays. You guys have 16, and they held the ball 17 minutes and 25 seconds to 6 minutes and 35.
Yeah, and again, a tribute to them. I mean, they systematically moved the ball in chunks and got their running game going and kept it out of our playmakers' hands, and erased the 18 points and made one more play than we did, and tribute to their football team and to their coaching staff that they did a good job. Our kids played their tail off. They played hard, and were ready. Just didn't work out.
So Tony Ross was a coach, and he was quoted as saying our defense was outstanding, gave up a couple of big plays early, but I consider that more of a credit to Chaney, them being a very good team.
Yeah, Tony was a class act, and like I said, they did, their defense did a phenomenal job, and credit to them.
How's that? Obviously, ending the year is always an emotional thing, and it's difficult. How does that? Sometimes you squeak into playoffs. Maybe think, kids kind of played over their heads, or just playing really well at the right time. You made the comment to me one day last week, it's a travesty that this group didn't win a state championship.
Yeah. And I'm sure that I told him afterwards, the staff told him, and that one game does not define a season. They had a phenomenal year. You could always look back and say what could have been. Um, and I think we could have made some noise if we would have advanced, because we had a lot of weapons. I mean, and we were we almost positive we did not have Dramati that game, and Dramati was a really good player for us. But again, the next man's got to step up, and um, as I said, our kids played hard. They left it all there, and we just came up short. And credit Canfield.
So, I mean, there's almost too much to list as far as the accolades after this season. Ciccarelli is all city, all NEO honorable mention. Clinkscale, all city, WFMJ player of the week, best back in the city, all city player of the week, all playbook elite team, NEO, second team all state, most valuable senior, Djibouti, all city, all playbook, all playbook, Faraglia, city second team receiver, Anthony Floyd, all city, all playbook elite, all NEO, Antoine, all city series player of the week, all playbook team elite, NEO offensive player of the year as a junior. Huge piece there. Moncrief, all city. Kevin Clark Memorial Scholarship. That was noted in the book. Kevin Flora. What was the were you given the Kevin Clark Memorial Scholarship all the way through? I know there were a couple families that did things.
Yeah, it was kind of like an unsung hero.
Okay. Phil Jaminet, the Red Angelo Award.
Highest GPA.
Yep. Mike Apache, captain, all city, first team, highest blocking percentage. Craig Lynn, all city, WFMJ player of the week, all playbook, elite team, all NEO honorable mention. Terrence Quigley, the Jeff Namath Award. Joe Wilson, the 12th Man Award. So there's a ton of, and then you got the NEO Division III Coach of the Year Award. So, I mean, there's a ton of honor and recognition to go around.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that has to be, exciting to share with them as a group. Even though it didn't end the way you want, but to be able to share that. And I don't know if they had, some of those dinners that you would go to for honors. When you had all NEO, would there be a dinner or something for that? Did you go with your guys with? Or was that, I know we used to go to that one in Cleveland for,
yeah, that was,
I know that was different.
National Football Foundation.
Yeah.
But the Valley Playbook, I don't know if it was around then.
It was. Yep.
They had a recognition dinner, but our banquet was like a festival. I mean, it was.
Sure.
It was,
yeah. Did you guys have an all city banquet? I know when for all SVC, I think we went to the Georgetown. It was a pretty neat, pretty good experience to be able to be invited to that, go participate in that. Did you guys have that for the city?
Yeah, there was a Player of the Year, Sinkowicz and Dinero Award.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know if they're still doing that?
I don't think so.
Okay. Final stat, which I thought was interesting: 311 total points over the season, and gave up 73.
Yeah.
So still the theme of staunch defense, but now putting up a few more points.
Balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. I again, it just so many kids stepped up in that year, and having Michael Wilson with us, and it was just phenomenal year. I mean, great, really enjoyable. I mean, didn't end the way we wanted it to, but it never does unless you win them all.
Yeah, that's the truth.
So,
and I think going through the nice thing about when you have these good years, right? There's a ton of articles you can read, and you get a small picture that's painted of it. Obviously having those D1 guys gives you the opportunity to have a higher ceiling.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
But it's also those program guys that step up, are elevated, make plays that the average fan doesn't necessarily see, that are critical to everything. Right? So you take those guys that don't have maybe as high as a ceiling, but they're playing at their max potential. And that's how you get to 10-0. That's how the next year you get to, play in a state championship game.
Yeah. And those guys paved the way. Those seniors paved the way for the next year.
Sure.
That was, having that experience come to the 97 year. It helped us. I mean, and look at how things transpired. I mean, in 97, we were looking to go home. Not looking to go home, but I mean, we were expecting that Hubbard was going to be our last game. And then, you end up playing in the state championship. So, I mean, the ball's not round.
No, and I think it's funny to think about these things, with where the playoff situation is today. Think about some of the teams you had that didn't make the playoffs, that ended up finishing 5 or 6. What kind of noise could that group of teams made if 16 were getting in at this point? And I think, and it's, just one of those mythical conversations, but if those groups of kids were playing in today's setup, who knows what could have happened?
Yeah, you're right.
But any final thoughts?
No, it was, it was, like I said, a really enjoyable experience, and it really projected us into, a pretty long win, not consecutive win streak, but winning streak.
Sure.
I mean, just like 90 through 92 did. And, it was that group. And again, I'm not going to single out, but they were a joy to be around. But I could say that about every team that I had the pleasure of coaching. And